On this episode, I'm sharing another tool that you can use to search up federal government contracts. And guess what? It's a little more user-friendly. I'll catch you on the inside. Welcome back to another episode of She Built Success. I am your host, Claudia. Now, if this is your first time here on She Built Success, go ahead and hit the subscribe button if you're watching us on YouTube or on your favorite audio podcast platform of choice. Go ahead and hit that subscribe and, leave a review. All right, let's get into it. So today I wanted to talk about another resource that we can use in government contracting to look for contracts and understand, kind of like how we talked about FPDS.gov in the past. This is a little bit different, and I want you to have options when it is you decide to go and look for contracts for your business and kind of what they've done in the past and how you can use this tool to your advantage. All right, so today we're going to be talking about USAspending.gov. That's USAspending.gov, also a government website, and we're going to do a fun screen share today. All right, so as you can see here, I am on USAspending.gov. And when you come on here, you're greeted with a screen. This is all spending data for the government. And what we're going to do is look at specific contracts just so you can get an idea of the differences between tools like sam.gov and FPDS and now USA Spending. So if you click on the Start Searching Awards, an award is nothing but a contract that was awarded is what they call it in the government space. So an award and a contract is one and the same. So if you click on Start Searching Awards, it brings you to this screen here where you're able to put in different filter values. Now, these filter values, you can filter on if you know a particular company, like for instance, let's say Lockheed Martin or Raytheon, you could put them in as a vendor. But then there's so many other selection points that you can pick or data points that you can pick that will help you hopefully narrow down how you're looking at contracts. So I'm going to use an example of a workshop, and I've kind of pre-queued some of this stuff up so that we're not, burning too much time trying to get this as an example. But I do want to show you some of the options that you can use when you're doing these filters. So when you go to USAspending.gov and we clicked on, search for an award, there's a button that's here that says click filters. And when you do that, you will see that you can look at keywords, you can look at a time period. So let's say you want to look at all awards that were for workshops from June of 2019 through September of 2019, for instance. That's what you could use the custom date for. However, if you wanted to look at fiscal years, now a fiscal year in the government starts 10/1 and goes through September 30th of the following year. So when they say fiscal years, that's what they mean. So October 1st through September 30th is a fiscal year. So if you were to search by time period and you were to look at the fiscal year, it'll give you an option to select more than one fiscal year. Give me 1 second. There we go. And so you see here, the most recent is FY 2025, and it goes down all the way back to 2008. And so if you had a specific, like let's say you wanted to, look at training for the past 3 fiscal years. I would not recommend looking at 3 fiscal years at a time for that, but maybe 1. But if you're narrowing it down to specific vendors, especially in the small business space, that may be advantageous. So you do have the ability to look at either a custom date range or at a specific fiscal year. And then I'm not going to step through all of them, but I do want to at least call out some of them. So you have award type that you can go ahead and pick. And so what we're going to focus on for this is going to be contracts and specifically. And so if you click on contracts and expand it out, it'll show you the different types of options that are available. So I would not recommend as a small business to start looking at BPAs, which are blanket purchase agreements. If you're going to look at things, I would say look at purchase orders and delivery orders just to kind of get an idea of what's available. And just keep in mind that as you're putting in this criteria, it's going to narrow down your focus. Okay. So if you did workshops and you want to go look at training now, you would have to change your keyword from workshops to training. So just kind of keep that in mind. And if you were looking at purchase orders and delivery orders, but you want to look at a smaller set, then you would select, one or the other. So kind of just some examples of how you can navigate. And then the agency. So you can type in the agency. I tend to leave that blank, at least on USA Spending, if I'm not as comfortable, only because the awarding agency and the funding agency can sometimes be different, but then other times they can also be the same. So for instance, let me see, Department of Education, for instance, could be the awarding agency, but the funding agency is FSA, Federal Student Aid. So that's what I mean by like, sometimes they can be different, other times they can be the same. You just have to know what you're looking for. And then I wouldn't necessarily get into like location and things like that. But I would say recipient. So if you were to put in, here's where you can put in like your vendor, if there's someone that you are specifically looking for, that you know their company name for, you can put that in the recipient part. And then award amount. I would say be careful with the award amount. Award amount is just the contract value, at least on USA Spending. Yes, you can go look at the big numbers and see what that looks like, but I'd say narrow it down and do a minimum maximum amount. That way you're able to see at a more granular level information versus trying to see all the contracts for a given time period, right? All right, so let's go up to the top. So what I want to show you is a couple of the pre-queued things that I did. So on this tab here, I actually went in and I filtered already on workshops was the keyword. So I went in, I put a filter on workshops, and if I click it here, and I filtered it for FY 2024. And if you see here on the keyword, it says workshops. So if I close that back up, you'll see there are 859 contracts that were awarded in fiscal year 2024. So remember, that's October 1 through September 30th of the following year. Are you a small business owner, consultant, or service provider ready to break into government contracting, but not quite sure where to start or who you can trust? Let's change that. The ReadySwipe.gov Accelerator is our 12-week group coaching program that has a one-on-one guided experience feel. Inside, you'll learn how to position your business, package your services, and create your credit card swipeable offer that makes it easier for government buyers to say yes. Plus, you'll have the strategies and tools to be able to navigate the process with confidence. Now, spots are limited, so go ahead and apply at ReadySwipe.gov.com, and we can get started to that little step forward in government contracting. 859 contracts were awarded under the word workshop. Now, workshop is a keyword, so it could be in different places. So in the past, we've talked about FPDS and how when you put in keywords, sometimes you can narrow it down to where sometimes you'll see a vendor with that name or a word in that name, your keyword in that name, or sometimes they actually might be in the requirements description. This one here is a little more fine-tuned. So this one is an FDA contract, and it's a rather large contract for our purposes, but I do want to just actually go through it. So you're going to look at the obligation amount. So this is a very large contract, over 25 mil. So this would tell me that, okay, whatever they're doing, it's obviously in a large quantity, but then it's like, okay, what else, what other information can I get? So the recipient name, this is the recipient of the contract, and then the type of award. So you remember we were talking about a delivery order versus a purchase order is the ones that you kind of want to focus on. In this case, this was a delivery order. My guess would be this is for some type of a material. So if I click on that hyperlink that has the award information, it's going to push me into that next layer of that actual award. So as soon as this loads, we'll be able to see, okay, what is this award really talking about? Now, I will say visually, this is a lot prettier and there's graphs and things that you can eventually chart here, whereas in FPDS it's not as user friendly, and it's, like I said before, it's like a 1998 Google screen. But here you could see that this delivery order is a year and 7 months left on it. So it shows you that it's currently still in progress because it was awarded in fiscal year 2024. At the time of this recording, we're in fiscal year 2025. And so the PID is just a contract number. I'm going to hopefully step through a little bit of this. The PID is just the contract number for this particular award. So you see the awarding agency is HHS, and which I do want to point out. So this one is the awarding agency is HHS. Let me see if we can see the funding agency on this side. Might not be able to see the funding agency. Yeah, we can't see the funding agency on this side, but I mentioned FDA earlier. So that's what I mean by sometimes they could be different, award versus funding. Okay. All right. So, But this is what I mean by like, it's a lot nicer graphically. Like you can see, okay, so this award start date was on September 20th of 2024, and its current end date is September 29th of 2026. So this is a 2-year. And its potential end date is September 29th of 2026. So some contracts are multi-year contracts. Some contracts are just for a very short period of time. In this case, this looks like a multi-year one. And so the information that you're getting from here is you're able to see the actual award amount. So again, you want to focus on that obligated amount for the purposes of if you're just doing research to understand what type of contracts are out there. Ideally, you would have slimmed it down at least dollar amount wise to something a little bit more realistic and reachable. But again, this is just for demo purposes. So let me go down a little bit more. So now you can see, we've talked about your NAICS code, right? Now you can see that your NAICS code is present here on the screen. So you can see, well, on my screen, but hopefully y'all can see it too. But this NAICS code is 518210, which is data processing, hosting, and related services. And then it also has the PSC code, which is the product service code, and that is special studies / analysis for medical and health. So what that tells me is, okay, if I am a company that specializes in research, I may be able to start looking at or targeting HHS, specifically the FDA, in this capacity. Or the other option is I could reach out to the prime, because you already know the prime, which is the recipient, has that contract. Maybe there is somebody rolled off. They're looking for another resource. Like, just because a contract is awarded to a prime, it doesn't mean that those resources are locked and loaded and they're not going to change. Like, still develop that relationship. It actually behooves you to do that, because you could potentially step in as a subcontractor, and there you go. You could start building your past performance. So again, this is just, I wanted to show you an example of another means or way to look at contracts aside from the FPDSs and the sam.govs. Now, I will say, when you're doing your comparison, so let's say you want to look at one of the years I try to avoid specifically is like fiscal year 2020 and a part of 2021. And that's or 2019, fiscal year 19 and fiscal year 20. And that's primarily because of the pandemic. And there's a lot of skewed numbers because of having to respond to COVID-19. And so while you can look at it if you choose to look at it in your research, I wouldn't solely focus on that and think that those are accurate representations of numbers. The other way to do it is to look at fiscal year of one administration and fiscal year of another administration to kind of start looking for patterns, like, did funding drop, or not funding, but did spend go down for HHS during FY 2019, for instance? Well, it actually didn't. I actually know it went up a whole lot. But or 2024, is it at the same level, or has it dipped a bit in this particular NAICS category? So think about when you're trying to understand how contracts work and, can this make sense for my business? Again, you want attainable numbers. You want to look at more than one fiscal year. And I would also recommend looking at the from administration to administration, just to see the trends in what it looks like for spending, and is it really a good fit for you? So there are a number of other data points here. I mean, you see charts. You can export this stuff and look at it in whatever graphical or Excel type Google Sheets tool that you may use. But it's, again, a lot more friendly in terms of visuals. So the other one that I did was for FY 20, I think this one was 18. Yeah. So this one was for 2018, again, workshops. And so just to show you the contrast between the two, in FY 2018, keyword was only workshops. I did not do a dollar amount. It's 1,436 contracts were awarded. So numerically, there was more contracts awarded in FY 18 than there were in FY 24. And at the time of this recording, FY 24 is done. We're in FY 25. So that can give you a data point to say it was almost twice as much in FY 18 than it was in 24. So when I say look at that, I mean, you have to actually go in and start digging into, what the contracts are about, but it shows you, okay, so I can see that they were awarding more contracts. So then I would say, well, who's the agency that awarded the most? And that's when you get into the fun of this. I'm not doing that on this iPad. I need a computer for that. But I just really want to show you what's possible, like how you can leverage tools that are at your disposal. Yes, there's companies out there that offer software and whatnot that help you, manage and manipulate this data. And when I say manipulate, I just mean, being able to put in different filters. There are companies that offer software like that at a cost, but I want you to know that you can do this yourself free today. So Bomu Bestie, you know what time it is. It's homework time. I want you to go to USAspending.gov, and I want you to type in a keyword and pick a fiscal year and see how many contracts you get and if that even aligns with what you're looking for. I think that this is a tool that for those who might not be a little scared of FPDS, this might be a little easier way into it. So I'll catch you on the next episode of She Built Success. Bye.